of the areas in Southwest Florida with the co-op that needed more people. You know, we made sure we got Duke Energy on Pine Island to restore that. We made sure we had FPL helping on some of the other ones. And so they were really able to work, and the restoration with the co-op was able to be moved up by like 2 weeks for what they thought it was going to be. Maybe actually now they didn't think they'd even have it all done in a lot of those places. And so that was really an urgency, and we were happy to be able to do it. We also understood the need to be able to have just core infrastructure working. And the two biggest things that we had to deal with were the Pine Island Bridge and then the Sanibel Causeway. We were looking at potentially doing barges and boats and all this other stuff, you know, but at the end of the day, people do need to have ground transportation, and that made us be able to get stuff done better if you could do that. But a lot of people didn't think that would be able to be done for a long time. So we worked, we went through red tape, and we said, we'll help. Those are actually not state bridges, but we had our FDOT out there, and so we were able to take on the task of restoring the Pine Island Bridge. A lot of people thought that that would take a long time. We thought we could do it in 7 days. Turned out did it in 3 days, and then got people back on. The morning after the storm, people saw how Sanibel had breaks in 3 different places, and that's a much longer bridge, a much longer causeway than what you had in Pine Island. And so there's a lot of people that thought that Sanibel would be out of commission for 6 months. And we looked at it and we understood that that was something that we wanted to avoid. So we worked to see what the options were there. And again, getting the ground on there is so much better. We were flying in electrical workers on Chinook helicopters, barging, but that's not even close to enough people that you need. And then, of course, the residents, not easy to just be boating back and forth. They need their cars. They need to be able to get on there. So we worked with FDOT to develop a plan and said, okay, we'll fix this. And they thought, I said, be ambitious. And so like, all right, we think we could do it by the end of October, which honestly would have been pretty good. Well, we were happy to say that on Wednesday of this week, 3 weeks after the storm had ripped it up in 3 different places, the Sanibel Causeway was open for the residents of Lee County again after just 3 weeks. So that's and we actually did the previous week. It wasn't really fully ready, but they were able to patch it enough to get like hundreds and hundreds of trucks across. So they've been working on restoring the power even before the causeway was fully open, because we didn't want to just sit there for a week and not get any additional stuff done. So they did a very, very hodgepodge patch a week ago, massive assembly of trucks, and then immediately went back to work again, and then, of course, to be able to open there. So those are great temporary solutions. Obviously, that's going to be a permanent fix. That'll take some time, but we didn't want to just have people out of commission before then. So that's really important, and I think Pine Island is going to bounce back much quicker because they have that bridge, and I think the same thing in Sanibel. There's a lot of damage in Sanibel, a lot of debris, a lot of power, uprooting of the power stuff. So it needs TLC, but they're doing it. I mean, they're making a lot of progress. We've also worked really hard through Florida's Department of Education to make sure the kids could be back in school as rapidly as possible. And that's something that has required the work of a lot of folks, the teachers, the administrators in the school systems, particularly in Lee, Collier, Charlotte, Southern Sarasota, and then some of our interior counties like Hardee and DeSoto. They worked really hard. Some of these faculty members had really big damage to their home. Some of the teachers were displaced. We were in Fort Myers yesterday meeting with some of them, and so people had to really work hard to do that. And so the schools are back. I was just in Lee County, and you have Sanibel Elementary at a different school now on the mainland, and so they're really working these issues. But, you know, we saw this with COVID. You don't lock kids out of school. You need to get the kids in school. We did that during COVID, and we're doing it now. And we also were able to help. So the First Lady of Florida, my wife, she's really spearheaded this. She spearheaded this Florida Disaster Fund, a relief fund FloridaDisasterFund.org. People have given online, and other people have given a lot. So she's now raised over $50 million for that. And so we were in Lee County yesterday, and I was able to, on her behalf, make an award to some of the local school districts' charitable arms in the heavily affected counties, including Charlotte. And we did $2 million across a few school districts to help with teachers who have been displaced or who need assistance in the aftermath of the hurricane. And so these are going to be things where maybe they need help with a deductible, maybe they need help with a repair, maybe they need transportation, maybe they lost their vehicle. You know, it used to be in these storms, you lose your vehicle, you get a check from the insurance company, you just go to the car dealer, buy a new car, no big deal. Well, it's a lot harder to find cars now because of the supply chain and all these other problems. And I know they've worked to move more cars in Southwest Florida, but the bottom line is there's a whole variety of needs. So we're able to do $2 million for those, for the folks in the education system. And then previously we did $2 million to the charitable arms of the Florida Sheriff's Association, PBA, Fraternal Order Police, and Professional Firefighters Association to help first responders who have issues that they need help with. And, you know, some of these guys were out there effectuating rescue missions for other people, and they lost their entire home, and yet they're out doing their job. So sometimes people forget, just because you see them in a uniform, you think it's all peaches and cream, like in their private home or whatever with everything. And there was a lot of damage done. So we were able to do $2 million across those entities, which is really, really good. And then the First Lady yesterday was able to do, she did a lot, definitely over $1 million, maybe more, but they partnered with Home Depot, and basically we have these nonprofit groups, these charitable groups, and we've seen it here in Charlotte with Operation Rubicon. They will go and they will fix your home. They help a lot of elderly, especially, get debris off their property. If you had a flood, they can gut the drywall and they can get you in good shape. You need repairs, they'll come in, fix shingles on your roof, a whole 9 yards. Well, Home Depot agreed to sell. So we're giving, Casey's given the money to the groups who are helping with the home rebuilding, but then they're able to get all the supplies from Home Depot at cost. So they're basically giving it. And so that'll make a big difference. And the thing is, there's some total losses for sure, but there's also just a lot of like maybe more modest losses, but people need help with that. And the thing is, you know, there's only so many people that are out there doing the work and all this stuff. So these groups can come in and really help folks. And I think that that's something that's going to be very good. We've also activated the emergency bridge loan program that the state of Florida has, and we are amending the rules of that to allow sole proprietors of businesses. And we wanted to do that because, you know, we have charter boat captains who are losing income as a result of what's happened, not just with the interruption in tourism and all that. You know, this churned up a lot of stuff in this water. You know, you had debris in the water, all kinds of stuff. And so that's going to take some time to heal. So we went and we did that. And the emergency bridge loan program, it's a zero interest loan for businesses. And if you think about with how high inflation and interest rates are now, it's a really, really good deal to be able to have. And then the state is very flexible on repay because we understand that that's a difficult thing. We were talking about some folks about how they lost the home, but then they may have to do the property taxes. And so I did an executive order to postpone the payment of property taxes for people that suffered either a total or significant loss with their property. And what we're going to end up doing is I've already announced that we're going to do a special legislative session before the end of the year, and I cannot forgive the taxes by executive order, but what we can do is have the legislature come in and provide rebates for people who had a total loss or had really significant loss to their home on their taxes. I mean, when you're trying to put your life back together, you know, you don't need to be worrying about ponying up more money for taxes. And so we're going to work to get that done, and I think we will. But we also understood that as people are filing insurance claims and as they're trying to repair their properties, you know, we have elderly, for example, on fixed income. You know, they file a claim and maybe they have $50,000 in damage. but maybe they need a deductible that they can't afford right now to be able to access that. So we wanted to be able to help people with their deductibles. And so I've been working with our state agencies, with the Florida Housing Agency, and I'm happy to be able to say today that we are going to award $5 million to local housing partners to help Floridians pay insurance deductibles following Hurricane Ian. So this is awarded through the State Housing Initiatives Partnership, the SHIP program. The $5 million, because we budgeted for disaster, was already set aside for a disaster. And so we're basically doing what we had planned for and utilizing it. So these funds are going to assist individuals, families, and particularly seniors with low to moderate incomes in the 6 most impacted counties: Charlotte, Collier, DeSoto, Hardy, Lee, Sarasota. I would imagine, that the bulk of this will be in Lee and Charlotte, southern Sarasota, and then probably parts of DeSoto and Hardy. But at the end of the day, we understand there's a lot of challenges here. We understand that those deductibles can be difficult to meet, and we want to be able to help. And so folks can stand by, and you will be getting information about that very soon. We're also working on other things that we're able to deploy in the area to help folks as much as we can. So I want to thank the folks at the Housing Finance Corp for snapping into action. We saw a need and we want to meet it, and we're going to marshal the resources that we have available to be able to do that. We also, when we do the special legislative session, this $5 million, if this is something that goes quickly, that's something that we could do additional funding for this. We can do funding for some other things. And so we're going to be looking at ways to be able to make a difference in that legislative session for folks who went through Hurricane Ian, apart from simply rebating their taxes. And so stay tuned for that. Well, I'm happy to be joined here by both Secretary Eagle as well as Trey Price, who's the Executive Director of Florida Housing Finance Corp. So Trey's going to come up and say a few words.
Thank you, Governor.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Yep, of course.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you, Governor, for your commitment to housing over the last 4 years. Really, it's been a pleasure to work with you and your staff on housing issues since he came into office. I've said it before, I don't think the governor gets enough credit for all that he has done for housing for Floridians. We also like to thank our board members, Ryan Benson, who is here representing Southwest Florida. He's from Fort Myers and I know suffered storm damage as well as Secretary Dane Eagle, who you'll hear from in just a few minutes. As the governor mentioned, we have $5 million in disaster funds that are being allocated to assist low and moderate income families here whose homes were damaged as a result of Hurricane Ian. Hurricane deductibles, as you know, are typically larger deductibles for home damages, and most people impacted by a major storm aren't prepared to put up tens of thousands of dollars to begin the work of rebuilding their houses. Southwest Florida is home to many hardworking individuals, families, and senior citizens that are an essential part of the economy and life here. So by providing the necessary assistance to help these homeowners with their insurance deductibles, we hope to ease some of the financial burden that comes after a major storm and allow their focus to remain on recovery. These funds will be distributed directly to the local SHIP offices, and there's one in every county in the state of Florida and entitled cities as well. And we encourage anyone in need of that assistance to contact them directly. There's information on our website at floridahousing.org as to contact information for each SHIP office. And my team will be meeting with SHIP offices in many of the impacted areas this week to streamline the recovery process and to ensure that we can be providing that assistance as soon as possible. So we're very appreciative of the leadership from the governor as well as from the state legislature. We look forward to working with them in the special session and other agency partners as we all work together to continue to provide Southwest Florida with the support that you all need to help rebuild these communities. Thank you.
Well, just last week, the governor hosted a roundtable with about a dozen businesses across Southwest Florida representing different industries, and it was a listening session. What do you need? How can we help? How can we continue to cut red tape And just since then, this week, the governor has announced from things that we learned at that meeting, the executive order on delaying the property taxes, cutting red tape for fisheries to be able to get bridge loans, and now this announcement today to help people with their insurance deductibles. So this along with the electricity, water, bridges coming online, just shows that the governor's not just here to be here, he's here to listen and act. We're going to make sure that we're going to continue to cut red tape, help businesses and people get back up on their feet. We want to make sure that this place doesn't have to change its name from Hurricane Charlie's to Hurricane Ian, because we're going to kick Ian's butt when it comes to recovery and make sure that it's a thing of the past. We're going to continue to recover. So we'll continue to listen and see what we need to do. The governor's called on Congress to double down on long-term recovery efforts to make sure that we can announce some of those big deal infrastructure plans a year from now, not 2 years from now. And then we're going to be doing a listening tour with some of the local communities when it comes to housing, because we know there's some short-term, but also some long-term housing needs. And then when it comes to our first responders, Governor, through action this last session, making sure that we are thanking our first responders for all that they do. We had $1,000 bonus payment checks that went out to everybody. But some in the Hurricane Ian path, those checks were diverted. So the governor sent me on a road trip across the 4 counties, was able to deliver a check here to Chief Gibbs for one of your firefighters, and able to thank him. And that's just because the governor cares. We're going to continue to focus. But that kind of action shouldn't be lost on anybody. During COVID, we'd seen states locking people down while this governor lifted people up. And we are now seeing the results of that in our economy. Yesterday, the governor announced the state's unemployment rate is 2.5%, the second lowest in Florida history. That is incredible. We haven't had a rate that low in 16 years, and it's because of his focus to helping people get back on their feet. And that's a whole point lower than the nation, by the way. 3.5% is the national unemployment rate. Florida's leading the way with 2.5%. Our GDP continues to grow while the nation's is shrinking. That's unfortunate. But Florida is in a place that we will be able to bounce back stronger than ever. We know this area is hit hard, but we're going to be here helping in the short term and the long term. When the cameras leave, the governor won't be, and you can count on that for years to come. So thank you for what you're all doing.
Yeah, we're we're fortunate. Obviously, we've Florida's had success in the past. It isn't like this is just a new thing, but over the last 4 years, different states made different decisions about how they were going to handle different issues, particularly with COVID-19. And we have more people employed in the state of Florida today than we did prior to COVID-19, and that's not true for a lot of these other states. We have significantly more people employed today in Florida than when I became governor in January of 2019. And as Dane mentioned, our GDP in Florida grew. The GDP of the United States contracted. And so if you look at the overall economic picture for America, just think of what it would look like if you didn't have Florida and Texas pulling in a good direction. You just think how it would be, that all the numbers would be even worse on those respects. And then, of course, you have the inflation in the interest rates, which has really been a result of some historic mistakes in terms of overstimulus, too much printing, too much borrowing, and they were warned about all this, but they just threw caution to the wind, barreled ahead because there was a lot of goodies that they wanted to smuggle through that process, and the result has been, we have the worst inflation we have had in 40 years in this country. And they said it was not going to happen. Then they said it'd be a blip. Then they said it would peak 6 months ago, and then you see it accelerate at the grocery store and all this other stuff. Now, we have a gas tax holiday in effect right now in Florida, so you're saving money at the pump, even though prices are going up everywhere. Our prices are, I think we're the 5th lowest gas prices in America right now because of our fuel tax. And so we're happy about that. But, you're in a situation where the two of the biggest policies that the federal government did over the last 2 years is, one, crimp production for energy at home, while also inflating the currency and overstimulating demand. So you have inflation because of the overstimulus, but that's being exacerbated because you're cracking down on energy supply. So the energy costs are going. Natural gas I think is the highest it's ever been. It's gone up tremendously. You see what's going to happen with oil, with OPEC cutting production. And people say, well, the Saudis, they're just doing this to be political because they don't like Biden. And yeah, that's probably true. But here's the thing. He has put the country in a vulnerable place where OPEC matters to us. We were energy independent, and it didn't matter what OPEC did. So now you're basically putting your future and your destiny is being controlled by OPEC, or you're having to beg Maduro for more oil. That is not a good place to be. And so getting real with a coherent energy policy to produce more here at home. And look, we're some of the most solar in the country. These windmills I don't think are dependable that they're talking about or whatever, but these are all just things that would complement. When that hurricane came through here and we needed to get the lights back on, we were using oil and gas to do it. You needed gasoline. If you had an EV, a lot of those things were catching, like the salt water got in them, really dangerous. So you need to be able to do that. You need to be able to produce more. That would be a big help at addressing inflation. One of the things that you see in Florida is we actually not only adding jobs. How many jobs did we add this last month? Like tens of thousands of jobs, huh?
47,000.
47,000. And what was the nation as a whole was like what?
A lot smaller.
Yeah, so we're a huge percentage of this compared, but our labor force is actually expanding, which is what you want. If you don't want inflation, you want more people coming into the workforce, and so you're seeing that in Florida, and we're happy with it. But the interest rates have gone up because of the Bidenflation. There's just no question about that. That makes it more difficult for people to be able to afford a home, makes it more difficult for businesses to be able to invest. Now, we have addressed with housing finance, we actually started July 1st a program to help because we understand, like, in an inflationary period, it's tough to afford some of this stuff. So we did a Hometown Heroes program to give down payment assistance to police, fire, teachers, those folks who are really working to support the community, because you don't want to have a cop have to drive 60 miles to go to work. You want them to be in the community. And so we've worked hard on that. I think they've done, 35 million? 35 million out of the 100 million. So people are using that. It's good. But, the interest rates going from where they were 2 years ago to now, massive, massive increase. And I think the Fed's going to do even more. So that's just going to slow down the national economy. We continue to outpace the nation, which I think is good, because if you remember 2008, when that recession hit, Florida did one of the worst of any state. We totally got killed. And we're in much better position now because we're just attracting more investment. We've got a good thing. And one of the things we're also looking to do to help people with the inflation is to figure out, okay, when inflation hits like that, people can make decisions about, okay, I'm not going to do this, but some things you got to do. And so we know you got to go to work. So we're going to work with the legislature to cut all tolls for our commuters by 50% across the state of Florida. And so there's different places in Florida where that's going to matter more than others. But there are some places in Florida where people can do, a couple $100 a month in tolls. So this will end up saving them over $1,000. Other Floridians will save hundreds of dollars. So that'll be basically, you'll have your tolls rebated 50% every month on your SunPass or on whatever pass you're using. So we're going to work on that because we think that's important. We also understand, and I have a 5, a 4, and a 2-year-old. My wife and I understand that, raising kids is expensive, particularly the babies. When inflation hits, diapers are more expensive, all this. So we are going to make in Florida, we already did a year of no tax on diapers and wipes and baby clothes and all that. But we're going to build off that, and we're going to say permanently there will be in Florida no sales tax on baby items like diapers, wipes, clothes, but also no sales tax on cribs and strollers. And they charge a fortune for these strollers. I remember when we had our first daughter, this was before I was governor, we do it and we're buying this stuff, and it's like the stroller was like major sticker shock. And they have these gizmos on them, and I couldn't even figure out how to work the dang thing, and yet we're paying an arm and a leg. So bottom line is no tax on all that. So basically, you're raising a baby, you're basically doing that tax-free in Florida if we get these things through the legislature, and I think that that's good. We want to be able to do that. we have our 2-year-old is basically, out of diapers. And but I can tell you, like, you can't just not buy diapers when they're that age. You need the diapers. There's just a reality when they're young. So we understand that, and we also understand we're going to do sales tax holiday for sports equipment for youth and other things to help families. We're also going to say that pet food will be tax-free in Florida, so you guys can feed your pets and not worry about having to pay taxes. That adds up too, because it's an expense you got to keep doing. And so we think we'll be able to save people. So we're trying to help lessen the blow of what Washington has done. I mean, obviously we have an election coming up. You could see a change in leadership in the U.S. Congress potentially. Maybe the policies will change. We'll see. But at the end of the day, we're just going to keep working hard. Let us know. Talk to Kevin Guthrie, who I've got living. Talk to Dane. Talk to any of the folks from state agencies who are down here as there are new needs, to do. I was here. I was in Sarasota a couple days ago. Actually, Northport a couple days ago. Fella from Charlotte was like, the internet's not working part of these places. So Kevin is now working with those companies. Now there's a lot of damage to that infrastructure, so they're going to have to do a lot. I said, can we do Elon Musk's Starlink? So they're working on all that. So just let us know. We want to continue to be helpful, but we're pleased that the response from the community. I know, growing up in Florida, as I did, and many of you have lived here for a while now, you've been through different storms. They're never easy, and this one was a big one. But I think the resiliency and the response to this has been really strong on behalf of the people of the communities of Southwest Florida. So, we're working hard to move all these resources, do all that, and that's our job. But we've had success with bridges and all these other things, partially because we have the community rallying together, helping everyone's rowing in the same direction. It makes a difference. So we appreciate that. We're happy to be helpful, and we will see you guys very, very soon. So God bless everyone. Thanks.